Hi, I'm Chris from CodeReviewVideos.com, and in this video we're continuing on with our test-driven wallpaper upload implementation. So a few videos ago, when we were working on our prototype, we came up with a solution to the problem where we had to provide the width and the height and also the file name, and we covered a way that we could do this programmatically using PHP's getImageSize. So if we look at the code for video 20 there being the video as it was at the end of our prototype, and we look under the event listener for our wallpaper upload listener, we have some logic in here that allows us to get the width and the height from the outcome of getImageSize, which we were then setting on our entity. So this may look a little bit funky to you, depending on whether you've been following along from the beginning or you comfort with PHP 7's array destructuring techniques. But what this is saying essentially is run the getImageSize PHP function against our new file location as covered in the previous video. And what getImageSize is going to do, if we look at the return value, is it's going to return an array with 7 elements, and index 0 and 1 contain the width and the height. That's the important bit. Other stuff we're not really interested in. And if we look in our implementation, index 0, we're going to store whatever's in that into a variable called width. Likewise, index 1 is going to get stored into height, and then we're going to use them appropriately below. However, you may be wondering how all this is going to work when it comes to testing. As we saw during the file upload process, whenever the sort of raw PHP stuff comes into play, generally our tests kind of become a lot more difficult to work with. Well, whenever PHP spec makes your life difficult, it's pointing typically towards some bad design decision that we've made. This isn't a bad thing as such. I mean, it's highlighting a problem that we need to address to make our system better. That doesn't mean that it's not extra work for us to do though. Okay, so let's dive back into some code, or should I say into some tests. So we'll open up the spec directory and then the event listener, wallpaper upload listener spec. And so there's some additional stuff. If we again just take a very quick look at this, when we've finished up this process, we expect our entity to have the right file name, the right height and the right width. And we need to capture that information somehow in this test. Now it actually raises 2 points. Firstly, how do we actually check that stuff? And secondly, how do we even get access to that variable, that entity, to start testing? Okay, so typically when I come to stuff like this, I'll just start writing the tests because this is what I want to happen. So we're going to have some sort of outcome, which pretty much going to be our entity. And we need to get access to this outcome somehow. So what I'm going to do is just, to begin with, I'll just comment that out. We expect this to be our entity. So if it's our entity, then we should be able to call methods on it, such as getFileName. And we can check that the value returned there matches something that we're interested in. So we already know what the file name should be. It should be our fake file name. And then we want to check the width and the height are also set. So we'll say the width, and we'll just say should return, and we'll just put in any number here that we want because we're going to fake this value. So it doesn't really matter. We just want to make sure that that value has been set. What that value is, as long as it's an integer, we don't really care. And again, get height should return and some magic number doesn't exist, whatever. Now, our primary assertion in this test is that this pre-persist. So again, maybe I'll just open up the actual implementation here. So under event, listener, wallpaper upload listener, and we'll split this one. Hopefully it behaves as expected. Yeah, good. Okay. Our primary assertion is that this pre-persist, when given some event args, should return true. Now, this isn't really helping us get to where we need to be. We want to return the entity instead of just a Boolean. So what I'm going to do is, instead of returning a Boolean, I'm just going to return the entity. Now, where does that get us with our tests? So do a PHP vendor bin, PHP spec, run, and then I'll just run that one particular test. Okay, so this is highlighting a change that we made towards the end of the previous video, where we're passing in or expecting to have a wallpaper file path helper set, but I'm not actually constructing properly here. So we'll say wallpaper file path helper. Okay, my mistake. Let's try these tests again. Okay, so it's given us a bit of grief here, saying we're on line 48, it can pre-persist, get new file path of some file name, and we actually expected something that looks very similar but should be exact. Let's have a quick look through this. So that's our line 48, it's just pointing to it can pre-persist, and the issue seems to be that I've got the lowercase there where I should have got a capital letter. Let's try it again. Okay, so we're getting pretty much to where we expect to be. It can pre-persist, expected true, but got this wallpaper entity. So that's because I've just made this change. If I swap this back, we should have a passing test, which we do. So that's cool. Okay, swap that back to an entity and let's carry on. Let's bring these back into play also and run our test again. And you can see there, we're back to this entity wallpaper is now received. So rather than this pre-persist event arg should return true, perhaps we could change this to should return an instance of, and then our wallpaper class. Does that work? Yes, it does. We're getting a little bit further. We're now getting to this outcome issue. So again, just to validate that, let's comment all that out, run that, and if we're not using these outcomes, then our tests are passing. However, we know now if pre-persist returns our entity, then we can get access to that entity. So we could instead just say outcome equals this pre-persist event args. We'll get rid of this should return an instance of check. And instead of checking there where it doesn't sort of make sense, kind of anywhere, should return an instance of this pre-persist should return an instance. It just doesn't feel right to me. So instead, what we'll do is get rid of that one and we'll just say outcome should be an instance of. And whilst that is a subtly different change, I just feel that that's a little bit nicer. So let's try that. So we're getting further now. Again, it can pre-persist expected some file but got null. And this is because outcome get file name should return fake file name, but we're not doing any of that stuff that we were doing in our prototype. So very quickly jumping back, this was our prototype implementation. Let's just copy all of that, drop it in for the moment. We'll get rid of this bit and we'll get rid of that as well. And we know now that we're not dealing with the Symfony uploaded file implementation. Instead, we deal with our own interface here. So we just need to get the file name. Does that work for us? It does. It gets us further. Now we're getting onto this integer is invalid. So again, we can just comment them out, rerun the test, and we are passing. Okay, let's bring these tests back into play. And let's be brave, put these things back in, bring this back in, and see where we get. So let's run our tests. And you can see now, warning, get image size, given this fake path name that doesn't even exist. It failed to open that file, which is pretty much what we'd expect because that's not a real file and PHP just has no concept of that. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you passing in a path that doesn't exist as if I'm going to be able to get any data from it? But we can't fake this, at least not easily. There probably is ways of doing that, but that's not an avenue I want to go down. So again, let's leverage the power of PHP spec. Just clear that off. We'll do a PHP vendor bin PHP spec, describe, at bundle, and then in this case we'll have a new service which we'll just call the image file dimensions helper. Likewise, we'll just run that and let it create the file for us, and that's good. So it's just command 1 on a Mac there to bring up the side menu, and we'll just make sure that we open up our image file dimension helper spec on the right, and then under service click in here somewhere so that it brings it up in the right pane, and we'll have that in here as well. But we kind of hit upon an issue here. Even though we're about to write some tests, we already know that this get image size function is not going to be particularly easily testable. I mean, we could set up a fake image and then run that against the known fake image path. Maybe that's one way of going about this. My perspective on this, however, may be a little bit controversial because I'm extracting out this logic and there's not going to be a great deal going on in this image file dimensions helper. I'm going to leave this relatively untested. So the implementation that I'm going to add for image file dimension helper is really straightforward. I'm going to allow the user to set an image file path, and then from there I'm going to have two publicly available methods. One's called getWidth and the other is called getHeight. We're not going to bother with an interface for this. Again, thinking back to the previous video, it just seems needlessly over-engineering or over-architecting our project to throw in an interface at this stage. So what I'm going to do is when the image file path is passed in into image size attributes, I'm going to store the outcome of get image size of that file path. Then I'll just have a couple of methods, get the width, I'll have a similar one for get the height, and what I'm going to do, just wrap this in a try catch. There's a potential this may go wrong, and we'll just return the integer value of whatever is in this image size attributes position 0, which again just ties up in a slightly different way to the way that we were doing it before. So that's the width. If we don't have some decent value returned, we'll just return 0. Likewise, swap that out for 1, should be good. Okay, that's about the very limit of what I would do for an untested class. I don't feel comfortable really doing that, but there's so little kind of going on in here that I feel confident enough to continue. We're going to want to set this up as its own service. Pretty much any time that you do anything like this in Symfony, it's going to end up as its own service. And just shift return there to create a new line rather than having to go to the end of the current sentence and then do it there. This service definition is super straightforward. It's just at bundle service and then our image file dimension helper. What we should also do here now is add in the service definition for our event listener. Okay, so I'll just open up this class over here. I've opened up the spec. Don't want that. I've already got it open. That's probably why it's not letting me do that. So just move that to the opposite group, and then we can see the constructor arguments. Close that down for the moment. Jump to our service definition. So we'll say the class is at bundle, service, and then our wallpaper upload listener. This is going to take actually 3 arguments. Currently only 2 arguments set up. First argument is our file mover. Second argument is our file path helper. And the third argument is going to be this file dimensions helper. Now, in order for this to work, we also need to make sure we've tagged it with the name of doctrine.event_listener, and the method to call, even though it's called event, is going to be pre-persist. Okay, so again, let's just do a little bit of tidy up here. So we'll just bring up our wallpaper upload listener spec again, because we've just changed that service definition. It's going to drop these down onto their own lines now, just to make this a little bit more readable. And we'll pass in the image file dimensions helper also. Now, unfortunately, PHP spec doesn't really like stuff like alt and return to help set these up. So say this like that. Just make sure that we've got that all set up properly, and this time remembering to pass it into the constructor as well. And then we'll look inside our pre-persist test. And before we actually call pre-persist, let's just add in some of these new things that we know about. So we're going to say this image file dimensions helper, set the image file path, should have been called, or should be called in this case because it's not actually happened yet, with the fake new file location. I'll just say that should be called. So notice after the fact it should have been called, whereas before the fact it should be called. The tense does matter. And again, image file dimensions helper, when we call get width, this is where we will fake our return value. So we'll just say we'll return 1024, and we'll just change this one to be get height and 768. Okay, so things are probably failing at this point. Let's just try it. We would expect them to be, because we've not done anything with our get image size as of yet. So let's open up the real implementation. Again, to split these, close that one off. Just makes it a little bit easier, especially on a small screen. So we need to set up our constructor here again. It's going to get the image file dimensions helper, alt and return on the Mac, easily set it up. And then we're going to get rid of all of this here. So we'll take all of that out. And then for our height, we'll call this image file dimensions helper, get the height, and likewise for the width. And let's see where we get with our test. Okay, so that's flagging up something that we've done wrong. I don't actually think that I even called the setter. My mistake. New file location. This is actually telling us that, which is nice. And there we go. So with all that done, does this actually work? Well, that certainly doesn't look like it did. Let's just get rid of all of that. Okay, something has gone wrong. Not entirely sure what it is at the moment, but we'll just start off by doing a cache clear. And so I've got at bundle service wallpaper upload listener. I would imagine it's something to do with my service definitions. Yeah, I'm in the wrong directory. Event listener. My mistake. Okay, let's give it a shot. In fact, if we just clear the cache should clear now, which should be an indication that this is going to work. Looks good. Okay, go back to our wallpaper, add a wallpaper. I don't want the width and the height anymore. So let's just change that as well. So we'll go into config, easy admin bundle. Close that spec down for the moment. Get rid of that and that. Give that a refresh. Got this horrible visual bug going on here, but this should work. So we'll say space1, some slug. Even better. This will be because we've not updated that properly. So let's just jump through here. We've got our file, Symfony uploaded file. And here we're referring to uploaded file, not file. This is unfortunate really. It's because of the way that I've been sort of jumping around once with the non-tested implementation and then with the tested implementation. It's not been the easiest of processes to remember exactly what I've been doing at each stage. Anyway, you can see it is actually now working. We're getting the image uploaded, the dimensions are set, our slug is set, our file name is set, and so on. So things look good at this stage with the exception of this.